Resident Evil 4 is one of the most popular horror speedruns of all time. Its heavy focus on resource management, high-level combat, and precise movement make it one of the most influential speedruns from the PS2 era. Speedrunners of this timeless classic have spent thousands of hours honing their skills to be the best of the best, competing in the most popular categories like New Game Professional and New Game Plus. But what about the less popular categories? In speedrunning, there are specific ways to play. Rule sets. We call these categories. Sometimes they change what the objective of the run is. Maybe you only play up until you get to the castle, beat Magikarp, or until your ears start bleeding.
Hey!
Other times, there are additional restrictions to a normal, otherwise speedrun. Things like not allowing glitches or banning certain weapons. In Resident Evil 4, the most popular category by far is New Game Professional. In this category, the player must complete the game from a new save file using the default costume and on the hardest difficulty. This makes for a very punishing but rewarding experience. A great blend of resource management, economic routing, combat, and some glitches across about an hour-and-a-half long speedrun. The reason this category is so popular is it's insanely fun to both watch and play, properly mastering every part of Leon's arsenal and showing the game who is boss. It's not easy. Because we play on the professional difficulty, the game's difficulty is locked to as hard as it gets. This means it'll never get easier if you die, or if you make mistakes. You simply just have to play really well the entire time. Thankfully, this is actually a blessing in disguise due to the way that the enemy AI works in pro difficulty. You see, because all the enemies are as aggressive as possible all the time, their AI is very predictable and can be read fairly easily. This allows for the creation of strategies that let you completely outplay the game without fear of any random actions from the AI. But we're also presented with instant kill enemies and stun locking Novistadors. This increased punishment for mistakes can be painful at times, but trading that for consistency is what has gotten the times as optimal as they are now. Surely, this must be the hardest speedrun RE4 has to offer. Well, at least one that isn't a meme, right? If you were to ask me that a few months ago, I would have said yes. But thanks to some new discoveries in the community, one category has risen out of memedom and into what I would consider legitimate gaming. No Merchant Professional. You may have considered what would it be like to beat Resident Evil 4 without using the Merchant. In fact, I know it's a fun challenge run that people do fairly often, but not one they usually do on Professional, and not while trying to go fast. The rules are simple. It's just like New Game Pro. Beat the game on New Game on Professional difficulty, but don't use the Merchant. Sounds fairly straightforward, but doing that fast is anything but. Normally, in New Game Pro, you buy rocket launchers from the Merchant to kill most of the bosses in the game. Gigante, Verdugo, Gigante again, Salazar, and even Sadler. But since you can't use the Merchant, there is only one rocket launcher in the whole game, and it's in 3-3 behind these bars. On top of that, you can never buy any weapons, leaving you with only the starter pistol and shotgun. That means no striker, which means no dipman glitch. To top it all off, your inventory is incredibly small and cannot be expanded. So good luck on stocking up resources. This category certainly sounds like a meme, and not in the fun, morally ambiguous frog kind of way. But with the new developments that have been made recently, it's been getting a lot faster. Actually, it's come down to 1 hour and 40 minutes, only 20 minutes slower than New Game Pro. So let's take a look and see just what Resident Evil 4's most brutal speedrun has to offer. Starting off, the run is almost identical to New Game Pro. Making his way through the village, Leon grabs a few nades and goes upstairs to grab the shotgun. Killing 13 enemies will cause this sequence to end, and normally you go back downstairs to throw a second nade. But because we need the extra shotgun ammo, we have to throw it from up here. This setup is way harder, but is just as fast. After that, it's exactly the same as New Game Pro for quite some time. In fact, it's actually a little bit faster because you don't have to grab the pendants to sell to the Merchant. Collecting every grenade you can on the way to the fish, Leon stumbles into the Merchant and reminds him, remember, no Merchant. After the fish, we arrive at the first really big change in No Merchant. Gigante. Normally, this behemoth is swiftly taken out by a single rocket launcher to the knee, but in No Merchant, you have to kill him quickly without one. Thankfully, just because he's tall doesn't mean that he can play ball. Leon dunks on him with 3 really well placed frag grenades, bouncing the third one off the backboard and directly into his plaga. This instantly kills him. Or at least that's what you used to do back in the day. The problem with this strategy is it leaves you empty-handed when you go into cabin, making it even more of an insane RNG fest than it was before. Recently, this new strategy was discovered. After throwing 1 frag grenade, you can throw a flash. This instantly makes the plaga come out. Then you can switch to the shotgun and kill it with a few well-placed shots. Not only does this save 2 frag grenades here, but it also saves a ton of time in cabin, making the fight nearly the same as New Game Pro, and way more consistent. Previously, it was near impossible to get a run past the cabin in No Merchant Pro, because you only had 1 grenade. After this, Leon is safe for a while, or at least until Ashley shows up to ruin the day. They run together through the dark village and into cabin, where they then hold out just like in New Game Pro and pray that Lewis saves the day. After they escape Lewis's funhouse, Leon and Ashley head into Mendez, where he is dealt handily with some fire grenades. At this point, No Merchant and New Game Pro are practically tied up, being almost the same speed. About a year ago, after this Mendez fight, you would have to go upstairs to collect some extra grenades, but this has since been routed out, leaving No Merchant to catch up to New Game Pro for the last time. Up to this point, they were basically neck and neck, but Castle is where the tide's gonna turn. And it's gonna get a lot harder for No Merchant. Because we can't buy the TMP or the auto rifle, both of our main damage output and crowd control devices are stunted pretty heavily. The pistol, while pretty good for crowd control, only has 10 bullets. And the shotgun can't one-shot enemies from a long range like the sniper can. This leaves No Merchant at a huge disadvantage for the next few rooms. This catapult room can actually be done exactly the same only if you have insane aim. But most opt to bait out the catapult like this and take the few second time loss. The next 2 rooms are business as usual since you don't even shoot in there anyways. But this changes when we get to the next room with Garrador. Normally there is a sick optic quickscoping montage here, but we only have the shotgun. So we settle for this hoedown dance instead. By waiting for the Garrador to recover each time we shoot it, we can loop its stun indefinitely, keeping him spinning to his doom. That is until we have to reload and bait him into a spin once more. After dealing with that, Leon heads into the hardest room of the game, and this time with no sniper. The opening to this strategy might look similar. This is because this is the strategy now used in New Game Pro, but it originated in No Merchant. Turns out that using the fire grenade to stun almost everyone and just running past is actually faster than killing them with the sniper, and it's only a little bit more random. Even still, this room is a total nightmare on No Merchant. You only have 10 shots with the pistol, and at such a low fire rate, that means crowd control is basically non-existent. Thankfully, Leon has to just reach the 2nd floor so he can despawn all the enemies with a checkpoint restart. But this is only just the start of the fun for Waterhall.
¿Qué se supone que hago? A la izquierda hay alguien, en el medio hay alguien, arriba hay alguien. ¿Qué hago? ¿Me voy por la, bajo la escalera? Bajo la puta escalera, ya me dirás qué hago. ¿Qué?
Because there's once again no sniper rifle, we have to give them the handheld blicky instead. Leon pelts away at the robed fools trying to take Ashley away with his little pistol. This is significantly harder than doing it with the sniper, and it requires all of your attention. Not to mention, there's Ganados on Leon's level that can't be easily killed either. Watching this room done correctly is always awesome, because there is so much that can go wrong. Kiting the ground floor Ganados around while protecting Ashley is super impressive. Finally, when they escape, Leon is freed from the burden of being Ashley's babysitter and heads off into the Novistadors. Handled as normal, the next 3 rooms are business as usual.
Stop who's using witchcraft only to get the fire off me!
A little Ricky Bobby action into a mind-blowing kick sends Leon on his merry way. One thing to note about this run as well is that because it's on professional mode, Heals will never drop if you already have one in your inventory. That, combined with the small amount of static heal drops in the world, makes the run super punishing, as it's unlikely you'll ever have more than one heal at a time. And you can't collect more until you use your last one. Often, this leaves you in limping speed after already having used your only heal. Once it's time to save Ashley, it's really time to test your aim, because you have to do this with a few nades and only the pistol. By throwing one precise nade at the start, you can kill every Ganado in the room at once, instantly going into the next phase with the Red Zealot. From there, a fire nade is thrown to stun all of them at once, followed by one more grenade. After one pistol shot, the Zealot dies and the sequence ends. This is a perfect example of how no merchant strats are just as fast as New Game Pro strats, but just use more resources and are a lot harder. Turns out, having only one heal is actually kind of a good thing though, because it's 4-1 and this inventory is about to get tight. You may not have noticed, but we actually passed the rocket launcher a few minutes ago. This is because we need room in our inventory before we can actually grab it. The rocket takes up a ton of room, and once we have Ashley, we can go back to get the secret book and butterfly. With both of those in our inventory, it looks like this. Yeah, it's tighter than Ashley's pants in here. This leaves room for 3 flashes, 1 fire nade, and 1 heal. Also note how we have exactly this many magnum rounds. This is important because you can only miss 2 times in the whole run, or will actually run out of ammo. Overall, this backtrack loses about 2.5 minutes, expanding what at this point was already a pretty big lead for New Game Pro. This takes us to the single most memey part of the run to date. While most of the dumb rooms have been pacified at this point in the category's development, no cure has been found for the cancer that is the Knights room. Using a flash to kill all 3 Plagas at once is the only possible way to have enough ammo to kill the 2 waves of Knights, if you don't want to knife them. This means that you have to use the shotgun and pistol to knock their helmets off. All of them. At the same time before they're able to kill you in one shot. And did I mention that you can only fit 1 heal in your inventory? Yeah, it's stupid. Not to mention the amount of times you have to shoot each head to show the Plaga is random, and there's also a bug in the second phase that makes your shot not count sometimes. Once you're freed from this nightmare, you head into another. Novice 2 is fine and dandy in New Game Pro, killing literally half of all runs that get there instantly. But in No Merchant, you previously had to do that with 1 flash grenade instead of 2. This has thankfully been routed out, allowing for 2 flashes here. So now it's only as bad as it ever has been. Proceeding through the clock tower like it never happened and across the meme bridge, Leon heads into the coolest room in the whole speedrun. Double Garrador. Yeah, this shit is sick, what can I say? This strat is not only cool, but also frees up the Magnum route to allow for 2 misses. Before this strat was developed, you had exactly enough ammo to beat the game. Walking it out, Leon equips the rocket launcher and prepares for battle. Nowadays, use the extra rocket you get on 3-3 in the Verdugo fight, as there's no actual possible way to kill him without using it in this route. Previously, you saved this rocket for the Double Gigante fight coming up, and just sat at this door for 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. This was the strat. We kicked this door until the elevator came. In our defense, there was no known way to kill both giants while still having enough ammo for the rest of the game. This changed, however, and saved a whole whopping 5 minutes by itself. Now, while this may enrage the YouTube commenters, this run is actually not glitchless. There are just less of them since most of them actually require having the dipping glitch, and that requires the striker. This is probably one of the only times you'll ever get to see this. This is Boulder Skip. In New Game Pro, you just go out of bounds via the zipline and dipman here, but you actually have to fight them in No Merchant Pro. Well, at least one of them. You can dunk the other one. For some reason, you can't Kobe one like you did in Village, so this strategy had to be developed. It turns out, getting grabbed and shaking it out does the same damage as a grenade. Doing this twice makes it possible to one-cycle the giant with only 2 Magnum rounds. Now for probably the most toxic part of the run, Novi's 3. While Knights are annoying and dangerous, they do have some skill involved. Novi's are notoriously random, and without Ditman glitch, Leon stands no chance. For this section, you basically just look away and pray, to be honest. The rest of the castle is fairly straightforward. Rooms that New Game Pro would normally Ditman run through are a tad more involved, but usually this involves running past most of the enemies. Elevator is exactly the same. Then we arrive at the place where we're saving most of the Magnum ammo for, Salazar. The Salazar boss is by far the most challenging boss in this run. No rocket to save him, Leon shoots in a specific pattern, dodging QTEs to get maximum damage on Salazar, hopefully killing him in 2 cycles. This shot actually goes through his eye and hits the body, making the second cycle happen a lot faster. You may have noticed it, but Leon's inventory is still really full, even though we just got rid of the rocket launcher back at Verdugo. This is because he's been picking up literally every single fire nade in the game on the way here. You'll see why in a bit. Heading into Island, we perform Island Skip and make our way to Ashley, knifing this regenerator on the way. In the Wrecking Ball room, Leon does a trick where he confuses Ashley into ducking while he walks around. This causes enemies to not see Leon when they spawn, making this room totally free. After a bromance and a car ride later, we end up at It, or U-3. This is what we saved all those fire nades for. Turns out he's weak to fire, and that's good because we're completely out of ammo. Using 9 fire grenades and 2 explosive barrels, we manipulate him down this hallway of hell and kill him relatively quickly. Before these fire nades were routed in, we just knifed him to death. This saves several hundred knife slashes. This fight also used to be insanely random. U-3 likes to dive and do random amounts of attacks whenever he wants to. But since then, there's been manipulations found to make this not happen. Krauser tastes Leon's knife and we head into the final stretch. Not having Ditman for 5-4 just amplifies the amount of random elements involved. 60 FPS archers have heat-seeking arrows, and JJ's aim is just impeccable. Thankfully, since we used all those fire nades, our inventory is absolutely stacked with heals. And we're probably going to need to use every single one of them, making our way through the final stretch as we use our last Magnum shots to kill the Gatling gun guards and grab their extra ammo. Some small adaptations were made in War Room, and we head to the final boss. This is probably the most different a boss has been yet. In New Game Pro, you just rocket him in the face. Twice. But here you can only do it once, which means you actually have to break each of the eyes on his leg and face. You can sneak in 2 Magnum shots before you knife him each time. This extra damage lets you spawn in the rocket launcher after 6 hits. But each eye only gives you 2 hits, meaning that you have to use grenades occasionally to stun him. However, this lets you do a really cool reload cancel. This fight has also been optimized a lot. Smarter routing of Magnum ammo and grabbing the extra from the turret guys allows for what was once a 9 cycle to be a 6 cycle, making this boss significantly faster and easier. Riding off into the sunset, Leon saves Ashley, without the help of some sneaky merchant. This whole time, you've just been watching Leon's world record for No Merchant Professional, the world's first run of it in under 1 hour and 40 minutes. This is over 10 minutes faster than the run that was just a year prior. In a game as old and optimized as RE4, that's truly incredible. And because of runners like him, maybe No Merchant isn't a meme category for much longer. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please go check out Lion. He's an awesome god gamer that has a top time in many games, not just RE4. Thanks so much for letting me use your footage for this video. Huge thanks as well to these patrons, HarbyVG, ZXPlayer, and Xenonox, as well as many more. If you want to support this content, consider subscribing to me on Patreon, or just come say what's up on my Twitch stream. I stream almost every day except for Thursday and Wednesday, starting at 8 AM Pacific Standard Time. See you there.